Good morning, Steph.
Hi, Anthony. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I think I'm going to start calling you my pusher.
Okay, explain.
You've created a new addiction for me.
Yeah, I did. For everybody listening, I introduced Stephanie to Cursor, and not to necessarily develop stuff, but to write content. And she does not answer her texts anymore because she's just completely buried in Cursor using it. And
I've said goodbye to everyone.
yes.
It's pretty amazing. And yes, pretty just, we could do a whole other episode or a whole other series
on automating yourself. Basically,
in the AI. Yeah. Have you been to Paris?
I have not been to Paris.
Have you ever been bitten by a tick?
I have not. I don't know. Probably, but not that I know of.
Last year. It was gross. Do you know what ticks and the Eiffel Tower have in common?
I'm trying to get the pun here. Where's the pun?
You're not really supposed to solve these.
All right. They are puzzles to me. Go ahead. I don't know. No, I don't have any idea. They're all both parasites. Nicely done. I have a really lame one today.
Okay, let's hear it.
And it's not a question.
It's not what I expect anyway.
Okay. You can tune a piano, but can you tune a fish?
Seriously, that's what you came up with?
That's it. That's all I got this morning. I know. It's lame. I need to update my dad joke list.
All right. Well, I've got another question for you.
Okay.
What decision have you been avoiding because you care too much with your one feeling?
I have
Jay Gold. Yeah, you have you have two. Jay Gold's kept his warehouse manager for 3 years past the obvious. The day after he finally let him go, his remaining team told him they'd been waiting for years. Today on How to Founder, we're going to be talking about the hard decisions founders have to avoid because they care too much. I'm your host. With me today is Anthony Franco, my wonderful co-host. We miss Chris today. He is in Vegas, and not for the reasons that you usually go to Vegas, but I'm sure he's having fun. We miss him though.
CES is a good show to go to because you get to see all the new gadgets.
Yeah, nerd it out, right?
Yeah, but he and I are on the same page where we don't love Vegas. Like Vegas, going to Vegas isn't a thing, and maybe it's an age thing, but I've always been an old soul. I've never liked going to Vegas.
I've never enjoyed it either, to be honest. Like I've had some fun there for sure, but it's just not my thing.
Yeah.
But today it's just going to be the two of us. We're going to dive deep into some of the hard calls we've had to make that we've avoided or watched others avoid, and finally learn to make on our own. So let's talk about it. Why do founders struggle more with decisions about people they like than people they're indifferent to, and what does it cost them? So give me a story. Tell me your experience with this kind of thing, because I know that even with the one feeling that you have, I know that even you have probably been through the same thing.
Yeah, So this is not a struggle that I have, and that makes me sound really cold and callous. I look at it from a different perspective. But I do know founders, and I can talk about why and what my and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it too. But I have run into founders that just will not let people go that are damaging their business. And they recognize what's going on. They recognize that this person's a problem, and yet they just can't get themselves to let this person go. And one story I have and this wasn't my client or somebody that I had a relationship with, but it was a COO that I know that was working for this uh, uh, working for her boss, and there was these two very toxic individuals in the company, and the CEO kept saying, you need to let these people go. They're doing damage. They're in management theater. In other words, they're acting like managers, but not actually being leaders. They're people that work for them don't like to work for them. They're not doing any real work. All of the things, right? And the CEO would try to bring on new people to bring fresh blood in, and like new marketing person or new salesperson, and those people wouldn't stick around that long. They would leave. And the rationale the CEO gave to the COO was, well, at least those two people don't leave. At least they stay.
Right.
So unpack that for me, Steph.
So I'm actually a lot like you. I don't really suffer from this problem either. Like I'm very comfortable having hard conversations, and if anything, I would say that I have to force myself to make sure I'm making the right decision, because I'm, I don't hesitate when I feel like it's the right thing to do, right? But I do see it a lot. I have seen it a lot in my career, and I think that there's like a few things that cause this to happen, right? So when you have a leader who, like, part of this might be, motherhood and apple pie. I just care so deeply for the people. But I also think that there are some deeper things that happen. I'm not super secure. Like, I have some insecurities, and these people help me feel more secure, or help sort of validate me. I've seen it happen when these people have reputation capital. Even if they're not doing the job well, they have relationships, or they are well known.
A salesperson with a key critical client relationship. Yeah.
That's right. And I think also, like, where there is personal relationships, and I don't mean inappropriate ones, but you've gotten to know somebody for a long period of time, and all of the things where it's going to impact them if you let them go. Like, what are all the reasons that I might hesitate to let someone go, even though I know that they're not good for the business, right? And I think there's also just uncertainty. I'm not certain that's the right decision, right? Like, I don't feel confident enough as a leader to know that this is the right decision, and therefore I'll just delay. Right. And maybe I also don't like the idea of going out and trying to find someone else, right? Is it the devil I know?
Great one. And I don't want to have to do their work for the short term.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, oh, I don't want to add that thing to my plate. I don't have the time to add their thing to my plate.
Yeah. And I think also this depends on the stage of business that we're in, right? So I work with a lot of solo founders who, I say solo, they often have a team, right? They've got a team of people, but they're not employees. They're like,
contractors and
contractors,
yeah,
that sort of thing. Yeah. And I see a lot of, like, solo entrepreneurs tend to feel quite isolated. And I think founders in general have a tendency to feel kind of isolated, even if they have a team around them. They're the only ones that have, everything riding on them. And so, do I want to let someone go who has supported me, or who I feel like, even if they're not doing a good job, I can still kind of commiserate with them, or they've been there from the beginning, so they know all the history? Like, I think there's a lot of dialogue that happens inside the head that makes those decisions really tough. From your experience, what do you think are some of the reasons that people, keep people around, other than being a bleeding heart?
Well, I mean, sometimes it's just they recognize. So there is a difference between recognizing that somebody's going through a hard time, and giving them the space to work through that personally. I think there's a lot to be said for that. But if the person's been going through a hard time for 2 years and it's always something different, that should be a sign. So and I've also heard like, well, this person, I'm going to destroy this person. Look, losing your job has much of an emotional impact as a death to somebody that you're close to. So not wanting to cause that person that pain, I think is a big reason why people don't do it. It's out of it's out of empathy that people don't do it. So I get the feeling, but Steph, when an entrepreneur is not making this tough call, let's talk about the consequences of that. Like, I don't think they're looking at the bigger, honestly, I don't think they're necessarily appropriately weighing the bigger picture to this individual picture.
I think there are also a lot of founders out there that are like ever the optimist, right? Oh, well, if we give them some more support, maybe they can really like turn things around, or I really believe in them, or I want to believe in them, or what have you.
It's also admitting failure, right? Like, I failed by hiring this person, which is really hard to do.
Yeah.
You bring up something good that I want to touch on. So, I was talking to an entrepreneur I knew. She was running this company, 5 employees. Just got their first round of funding. They were starting to take off, and she had this one person that wasn't carrying their weight. And I think this is important because you talk about you mentioned stage of company, right? So this one person in a startup of 5 people that were just trying to get going, trying to generate revenue, they weren't pulling their weight. And she said, I think I need to put them on a performance improvement plan. And I said, what? And she, what do you mean performance? It's like, yeah, I think she was looking at it. She came from a corporate gig and thinking she needed to handle it in a corporate way. And I'm like, you don't have the resources to give this person 3 months to figure it out. It's one hard conversation. If you don't figure this out, you're fired. And if they don't figure it out, you fire them. You do not have the luxury of treating this like a corporate HR person. Your company's survival is based on the people that you bring in. If you have 5 people, if you're 100 people, one person is 1% of your workforce. If you're 5, it's 20%. You don't have that luxury of keeping that person on and navigating them through. You also don't carry the risk of them suing you because you don't have anything to sue yet. So take advantage of that and let somebody go that is obviously not working out.
So here's the other thing that I see is that we've talked about this before, that just because you were good at your craft and you became a founder it does not make you a good leader. It does not make you a good manager. It does not necessarily mean that you know all the things about business. And that's not a criticism. It's just real, right? So the other thing that I've seen is that people hire for the wrong reasons. They think that they should be hiring based on someone's, this is like the death knell, right? Oh, we need somebody who knows our industry or knows our business. No, you don't, right? And so they mix up the person's personal experience with the role that the business actually needs. And then they end up trying to shoehorn people into a role that doesn't match for them. And they keep saying, but they know the business, but they were an ex-client. And so now they know the business really well. And that's so important to us. I'm like, they still need to be able to do the job, right?
Do the job.
And I think that's the conversation I probably have more often than anything else, is helping them understand what the business actually needs, as opposed to, this person came out of the pharmaceutical industry, or they know our business because they were a client before. That happens a lot, right? I hire somebody because they had some experience with our business, and then they're just not the right. Like you can't just stuff people into roles because they have some familiarity with you or your industry. You've got to actually.
You bring up something really interesting, and that is not knowing leadership. And I actually, an analogy popped up in my head that I use all the time. So leadership and parenting are a lot alike. And so this is the advice I give my wife all the time, because she thinks she's failing as a parent. It's a constant feeling.
That's what we do. That's what women do.
Well, I feel the same way. And and it's the same thing with leadership. If you think you're a great parent, you're probably not a great parent. Like it's a constant feeling like you're not doing enough. And that's the same thing if you're a leader. If you think you're doing a great job and you're not stressed out about missing something, you're probably, or you don't like go, oh, I could have done that better all the time, then you probably need to take a deep look in the mirror and get some coaching, because you probably are missing a lot of things, and you're going to continue to miss them because you think you're doing a great job. It's not something you achieve. It's something that you continually work on all the time.
But I also think, like, I also get it. I get why people want to keep people around who make them feel good, right?
Yeah.
Like, not even if
I
it's
get that too.
Helping them up, but it's like someone I can relate to. Like, being a founder is lonely, and it's, you know, it's stressful. And so if you've got someone on your team who makes you feel good, even if they're not really performing or they're really aligned with you personally, that's a hard thing for people to let go.
Yeah. And I go ahead.
I was just going to say, I was just going to transition into, so what does it cost you?
Yeah.
Right. To keep somebody around who's not performing or who isn't the right fit for the business?
Well, there's two things that come to mind. So you as the founder, as the leader, your responsibility is to the business and all of the employees and your customers, not to an individual. So if you're debating whether or not you need to keep this person around and you're struggling with them for certain reasons, the likelihood that everybody else is struggling with them and having to carry the weight that these people are leaving, or the turmoil that the turmoil in their wake, you are doing your other people a disadvantage by keeping this person around. You're doing your business a disadvantage. Not only are you doing, not only have to do your employees have to work with this person, they also have to deal with a company that is potentially stagnating and not growing in the area, and therefore costing them opportunity. You're also showing tacitly what acceptable behavior is, which I think is the biggest. If you let poor performers and people that should be fired stick around, then all you're going to have is poor performers sticking around. Eventually, the high performers don't want to work with those people, and they'll leave. And you're kind of stuck with this downward spiral into death, because all you can keep are the people that don't do the work. Because top performers want to be productive. They want to see growth. They want to win. They want to work with other winners. And then obviously all the customers and all the damage you can do to customers and customer relationships and et cetera, et cetera. Plus, if you're avoiding the repercussion. So I've made this mistake once where I've made that cultural mistake. Like, this person has cultural, is liked culturally, or has some, they're holding some things together that I don't have visibility in. And I'm worried about that. The moment I let that person go, that I'm feeling is toxic, people come up to me and go, thank goodness that you should have done that 6 months ago or 3 months ago. So there is this relief, this organizational relief that happens when you let somebody like that go.
I actually think more often than not, the founder isn't sure, or can't really clearly articulate that person is not good for the business, and it takes an external party to hammer that home for them. So I think that they delay, or they don't take any action because they're just not sure, because the team around them is not going to, unless you've got a really great relationship with, one of your key close people, they're often not going to come out and tell you like this person's not performing.
By the time
like,
it reaches you, it's probably like a problem.
Yeah, and most of the time my clients are like, they don't really know, and then when we finally bring it up to them, they're kind of like, oh, right. I think they've probably been telling themselves stories, or maybe it's not clear or evident or whatever, but they've often put the wrong people in the roles for their business, right? And they do require some sort of external third party to be able to hammer that home for them and make them aware that that's a problem. So the cost of keeping those people around is the productivity of the other team, not just productivity, but like the, you know, what you're signaling to the rest of the team around what's important to you, right? The money, right? You're just throwing money away because you're not getting any return for it. I think, you know, this obviously can impact your delivery of services, the development of your products, like whatever that role might be. What about like relationship capital? Like, how does this impact the relationship you have with the rest of your team, with your customers? Like, I think it's actually a branding issue.
I think letting go of somebody that's not contributing or is toxic or is, and I don't want to overuse that word toxic because that's been overused recently, but somebody that really sows discontent amongst people, is a gossip, constantly is undermining decisions made by each other, one another, trying to jockey for position, favoring their own position over the company's position, like those kinds of people. You have to let somebody like that go, because you actually improve your relationship with your other employees if you let somebody like that go.
But I'm going to argue that it's actually less often that clear, right? Like, I'm thinking of a client we were just working with who has this super lovely person on their team in a role that she shouldn't be in, that she can't do, that she's constantly failing at. And it's a huge gap in their business, right? It's actually probably one of the key points that is holding them back from growth. But there's nothing toxic about this person. Like, they're a lovely individual.
When you're just talking about capability, look, this person's not happy in that role either.
No, like, that's true.
The empathetic thing to do is to tell this person, this isn't working. Like, you're not doing what the company needs. You can't be happy with what your progress is. This isn't a fit for you. And then you leave it to them. Like, how can we make, what do you need to be successful in this role? Or what should we be putting you into? Or how do we help you transition into something that you're going to be happy to that isn't in the company? This is you're caring for this individual. If you're telling somebody that can't do the job, if you're talking to that person, it's like, you can't do this job. This must be miserable. I'm so sorry I put you here. How do we fix this?
But
yeah, go ahead.
But what I was trying to get at is that the problem wasn't that they weren't approaching the person. It's that they didn't recognize that it was a capabilities gap. They just thought, oh, she's like, they kind of saw it on her resume. You know, she's done certain things in the past.
How do you not see it's a capability?
She should be.
So either she was doing her job or not, right? So she wasn't getting the results, right? So she wasn't.
Yeah. So for them, they were like, we don't know why she's not, like, why we're having this issue, because she's got the experience, which she actually didn't, but they don't know their business well enough. They didn't know what their business needs. And they don't understand.
Were they not properly measuring it?
They don't understand, like, they don't understand the role. Because it's just not their, like, it's not their bailiwick, right? Like, they don't have the experience with it. So they don't understand the role.
Okay.
They hired someone based on paper, right? And so they're looking at this individual and they're like, she's such a lovely human being. And she thinks she can do the work, but she's not at all. Like she probably could from a skills perspective.
So what you're talking about,
she doesn't have
this is harder. What you're talking about is their expectations for the role too high and nobody's going to be able to do it?
No.
Or so that's not so, but you have to ask that question. And I've been there as a founder where it's like, am I asking something that's not possible? Is it this individual or is it my expectation that's off?
It's that they didn't understand the role. They don't know what that role is. They don't know what it needs to be. And they hired somebody based on what was on paper and the fact that they had some experience with their business and they were really nice. They're a really nice person, right?
Got it.
And they're very supportive. And so I think that happens much more often than not, especially in that very early phase where, it's really just the founder with a few people that they've hired, but nobody to help them understand what they are actually looking for. Because in my world, that particular role is a role that a lot of these founders who founded because they have some, passion or creative skills that they just don't know. Like they don't understand the role.
That's an interesting, so I'm not letting this person go that's not achieving the results because I don't know if it's like, I genuinely don't know how to push this person to do the job because I don't know the job myself. I don't know how to do the job myself. Right. So I don't know what the expectations should be. So, but there was a, it's a great position, but there is a expectation that was set when you hired the person that they agreed to.
And they think they can do it.
But they're not doing it. It doesn't, whether or not you think you can do it, you're not doing it. So the conversation is, this is what you're supposed to be doing. This is what you're doing. There's a gap. What do we do about that gap?
So when that question was asked, I don't think that this person even understood why they couldn't do it, but it was really a skills gap. Like it was very much like, but the excuses, I don't even say excuses because that's not fair, but it was like her perception of why things weren't working was something totally else that, had some validity, but her perception was something that was totally else. We came in and we looked and we're like, oh, 100%, this is not the right person for this role. Like she just is not wired to do this. So
outside perspective helps.
So she stayed in the role for a year. She'd been in the role for a year and they didn't know why. They attributed her non-performance to personal issues or, other things or whatever, but they just didn't know. And so that's why she
stopped making excuses on behalf of your employees for not doing the work that you need done. So that is something you do for your family. It's why I never think that when you say your company is a family, either you're lying or you're managing it wrong. This isn't your daughter that you're trying to coach through something. This is something that is being paid to provide a service to your company and for the benefit of your company, your other employees, and your customers. And if they can't do it, then you have the wrong person. And it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter in the world that they're having a personal issue that's not allowing them to do it. Or it doesn't matter that it's somebody else's fault in the company. It just doesn't. It's like, that's fine if you can't navigate the system. Then I need to hire somebody who can.
Okay. So let's say we grow a pair and we decide that we understand clearly that this person can't stick around. How do we approach this? How do you approach this as a founder, especially if you have, that empathy and the soft-heartedness that, wants to keep giving people a chance? Like, what's the approach? I know you and I are fine having these conversations, but a lot of people aren't, right? They feel bad. They like it. They question themselves whether they're making all this stuff, right? So what's the best way to approach this kind of conversation, especially when we're in those early phases?
This is really simple. I think it's a really simple conversation. It's not an easy conversation, but it's really simple. One, this is what we need for the person doing this job. You're not having success there, right? This is how we measure it. So you have to have good measurement in place. You have to know what this person's supposed to be doing and measure it. This is what we're measuring. This is your results. It's not working. Are you happy trying? Are you happy at failing at this? And maybe there's a different role. If there's not a role for you here, I'm going to help you find a role somewhere else. It's that simple. They're not happy failing. And if they are, you definitely need to get rid of them. They're aware that they're not meeting.
Say yes. Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've had people do that. They're like, what are you talking? Like completely thrown out from the loop. What are you talking about? It's like, well, your salesperson example, you're supposed to bring in this much money. You haven't brought in anything. You're failing. Yeah. But I've got this huge pipeline and I'm talking to all these customers. Yeah. But we've given you time to nurture that. You got to close something. You're not closing anything. I need somebody that can close something. Sales is really easy. It's project management is really hard, right? Well, your projects are not coming in time. Your projects aren't coming on in time. Well, it's not my fault. It's the developer. It's the team. It's the blah. It's like, well, but your job is to make sure it comes in on time or bubble up when it isn't, so we can get ahead of it. We're always finding out after the fact that something's not right. That's not what this company needs. We need somebody that is proactive in making sure that something is bubbled up before it's an issue.
I think you're hitting on something that is very, very early stage. Like it happens all the time. Is that I've seen this in so many of the startups I worked in and the little businesses I worked in. You have this constant finding out later because the culture and the culture of a small startup is like, just get it done. Like everybody just fix it, figure it out rather than bubbling up problems. Right. And so somebody tries to fix it and tries to fix it and tries to fix it and then gets to the point where it's become an issue. Now, I think before you're having the conversation that you've just described, you're having a different conversation. And that is around like sitting down. My favorite way to approach somebody like not performing is to not assume that it's the person who's not performing. It's that there's a misalignment between the work that they're trying to do. And I think
I was assuming that conversation already happened, but you're right.
Yeah. I try to think that everybody's given the benefit of the doubt until I'm certain that that's not true. But the conversation starts out with like very neutral, like, hey, the measures are not measuring, like the performance is not happening. We've got a problem here. Let's sit down and try to figure this out. Like, what is the problem? We're focusing on the problem first as opposed to the individual. And then if we go through that and sometimes the people will come up with like a really like something I wasn't aware of that I had no idea. They're like, this is why I can't be successful. And we're like, oh, okay, well, let's fix that. However, if that persists and we just can't get there, then we're having a conversation about you and, this role and whether this is good for you to keep going in this role. And that's when, either capabilities are misaligned or, desires are misaligned. And we've just let someone go in one of our teams because, she just wasn't showing up. And when we finally had an honest conversation, she's like, I felt an obligation. I felt like really wanted to support this founder, but I'm not motivated to do this work because it's just not in alignment with where I'm at right now in my life and all of it. Great.
How you have to love that honesty. That's amazing.
Totally.
Yeah.
But it took a long time to get there. Yeah. I mean, we changed her role back in August. And it was that long of non-performance before we finally got that out of her, like the admission that's
amazing. That's amazing that you got her there. I before we get to the speed round, I want to ask. I want to kind of switch this because we've been talking about making hard decisions on employees, but there's other hard decisions that customers that entrepreneurs don't make, that founders don't make, and the other one that I would love to just pull on really quick. The other like pervasive one is not knowing when to fire clients.
I was just going to say, when do you fire a client? We just did.
Yeah.
We just did that.
So how do you, why do you hang on? Why would a founder hang on to an unprofitable client?
Do you know what? Like, we just went through this. We actually tried to have this client not hire us in the first place. Like, we actually tried really hard. And then we, and to be honest, they're lovely people. Like, none of that. But we did end up working with them for a while, and it was painful. Like, it was, again, nice people, but it was painful. And what I finally, we kept sticking around because we had this bleeding heart thing going on where we were like, but we can help them, but we can help them, we can help them, but we can't help them because what they wanted ultimately, like, we had even put together another proposal for them because they had asked and they were like, we want to keep working with you. And we had put together another proposal for them. And then, call after call after call talking about the proposal. And then finally, in our last call, I said, we're not going to take this on. Like, we just can't, because I finally realized what they wanted was not what we wanted to provide. We wanted to fix their business. They wanted to find a quick cash injection. Like, and they kept asking us for this thing that they had bought in the past from someone else. So like a packaged up little, 6 figures in 6 weeks kind of thing. And I'm like, that's just not what we do, right? Like, that's not. And so there was just a total, and I said, we're not going to take this on. Like, we're just not going to do it. And it wasn't contentious. It wasn't bad or anything, but it was finally like a glaring light that we can't be successful. And I don't want to take something on if we can't be successful.
I've only fired one customer. I've only fired one client, and I actually regret firing him because I've matured. Matured is probably overstating it. I've changed my mind on how to handle clients. So I never say no to a client, especially if you're in services. I never say no. I just present terms that are probably disadvantaged to them.
Yeah.
It's never no. It's just about terms,
we did right?
Like it's not. Hey, client, we're not profitable, so we're going to let you go. It's, hey, in order to continue to working together, we need to change your pricing. It's not working. Yeah. Or if a client's being a jerk and very difficult to work with, it's perfectly fine to go to your employees and say, I'm going to go to the client and I'm not going to fire him, but I'm going to put a pain in the ass tax on him. And I'm going to split that with you. Is that okay? And so somebody that's working with a difficult client, they might go, well, I'd work with them for another $1,000. If I got another $1,000 in my paycheck, I could see my way through it. And then you go to the client and say, you're a pain in the ass. I need to put a pain in the ass. If I'm either going to lose you or my employee. And I love Bob, so I'm not going to let Bob go. So if you want, I need to raise my prices $2,000 a month, or you're out. And let them make the decision.
Having been in services for my entire career, we have had to fire clients before, but I think even more so is knowing before the sale is even made that this isn't a client you want to work with. And there's been one time in pre-sales where I actually declined to continue the sales process with a client because they were so misogynistic and awful during the sales process that both my partners said to me, we're not supporting this. Like, we will decline to do business with you. Right.
So you don't think, so this is maybe I'm not sure the answer to this, because there's some certain, I've turned away clients before. Like one of the clients I turned away was a porn site. Like, that's, you just don't work with companies like that. They wanted us to build them a video player that was operable using one hand. No, that's not a lie.
So are you serious? That's amazing.
Dead serious. And we said no to that. But in your circumstance, when the client's difficult, did you ask the question, what is the number that we'd be willing to work for this client for?
Nothing.
Okay.
Nothing.
So, but you had the conversation.
Yeah, I was not willing. I was not willing, and my partners were, to their credit, thank you, was not willing to work with someone who would treat me the way that this guy was treating me. So that's a non-starter for us. And I think that that's a maturity thing. Like as you get further along in your career and in business, that like us letting this client go that we just did, I cannot tell you the peace that it has created for me. And when you feel that retroactively, like, you made the right decision, right? So it's hard because in this stage, in the early stage or when you're a founder or whatever, every piece of business is meaningful to you from a financial perspective, but there's a number.
There's probably something wrong with me here. So not just one thing, but multiple things, but this one in particular, I don't care how a client treats me. I don't care.
Oh God.
Because it just doesn't. If like I always look at it, if somebody's being a jerk to me, that's on them. I'm pretty easy to get along with.
I don't need to. So am I, but I don't need to.
Well, I mean, I mean, will I charge somebody like that more? 100%. I'll charge them a PETA tax, but if they want to vent to me that I'm doing stuff wrong,
no, it's not.
I'm perfectly.
It's more insidious than that. Like
okay,
I have clients.
Give me an example.
I have clients who, can be more challenging, and
yeah,
I manage them, and that's totally fine because we have honest conversations and I build good relationships. When you have someone who is blatantly misogynistic,
what do you? So say more about that. Give me an example.
I don't want to go there right now because I think you and I are going to get into a conversation I don't want to have, right?
Okay.
Let's just
no. I promise I won't. Like I won't judge
you're
it.
A middle-aged white man, right? That probably hasn't.
So you went there.
Hold on. That hasn't, and that's not like, I'm not saying that like it's a bad thing. I'm just saying the chances of you having the same experiences are much less, right? So when you're dealing with someone from another culture that has learned
were they harassing? So misogynistic? Were they like doing like saying very inappropriate things? In that circumstance, I agree.
Is that your yardstick? That it has to be very inappropriate for you to decide not to work with them? Like, does it have to go that far?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. If they're.
Here's what happens is when you are in a position of knowing that you're receiving that kind of engagement from a client, you know that down the road, every single time you have a conversation about money, every time you have a conversation about scope, it's going to be hard. It's going to be like unnecessarily difficult. Mm-hmm. And you are going to be constantly. I just came out of a 3-year consulting agreement or arrangement where same kind of thing, like dealing with a guy who would never, ever engage with me in a way that I wanted him to, that honored what I could provide. So I don't want to be in that. Like
But what? So again,
Anthony,
why? Just I'm not arguing with you. I'm genuinely curious. If you set the terms, this is how we're going to engage with one another, and they argue with you, the answer is, I'm sorry, no. Like these are the terms. This is it. Well,
I know that needs to be. That feels very black and white for you, but there are lots of systemic things that just bubble up and evolve. I was in that arrangement for 3 years, and it was okay. Like it was fine-ish, but I would never. The difference between being in that environment and working with my clients now is like night and day, right? So I get to decide if that's something I want to take on.
It's
right?
Exactly right. You set the boundaries. You're like, if we're going to work together, these are the boundaries. And if they say I'm going to break those boundaries, it's like, okay, so I guess we're not going to work together. It sounds like you're doing it right, right? Yeah.
Anyway,
of course, it always is. But yes, that's essentially what you're doing. You're
back to
setting the terms and your clients aren't agreeing to them. So you're saying, okay, so I guess we're not working together.
So you get to decide, right?
Yes.
So
yeah, I agree with that.
Back to having a hard conversation with a client.
Yes.
You know, I do advocate for people making decisions for themselves, even pre-sales, that if they feel like this is going to be a very difficult client for them and it's going to affect them, don't do it, right? But if you've gotten into it and they become very difficult, then you get to have hard conversations. And you have to, I think the big thing is you have to get into the mindset that this is not the only client that's out there, right? And you have to be willing
Yes.
to be in a position where you can let them go.
Yes.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be the conversation that you're having where you're letting them go, but you have to be ready for that to happen.
I totally agree with that. Like, you have to be willing to stand firm on the terms that you're willing to work with them on.
Yeah.
The boundaries are appropriate. Yeah. I'm not saying don't have boundaries. I'm just saying you don't tell I would never tell a client I'm firing him. I'm saying these are the terms by which we're willing to work with you.
Yeah. Unless it's a heated drunken exchange in Las Vegas, you're most likely not going to go forward to them and saying we're firing you. You're going to say, going forward, here are the terms in which we're going to work. If you cannot handle that. But there are some like when you see it that there's a client that you're just never gonna, it's never going to be peaceful. There's never going to be resolution to the foundational problem. Then you say,
so what would you do in the circumstance?
Yeah.
Where this is something that actually happened to me, where you discover that a client and their account manager have been commiserating to defraud your company.
You can't take legal action? Isn't that the right answer?
So it wasn't. It wasn't. It did. Defraud is probably too big a term. Squeeze more out of your company squeeze more out of the services than they actually paid for.
Okay.
What do you
clients do that all the time?
But not in conjunction and in collaboration with the account manager. The account manager was in on it in order to boost their commission check.
Okay. And so what did you do?
Fired the account manager, escalated to the company that this was happening.
Okay. And did that give you resolution?
Felt good.
And did you continue doing work with that client?
Actually, yes. So they didn't fire the person that was doing this. They were doing something unethical in order to boost both of their own paychecks in the companies that they were working for, right?
Okay.
So we escalated. They didn't fire that person, but they changed that. They didn't allow that person to work on this account on with us as a vendor anymore. So okay. it did. But that was a hard conversation because we were equally at fault for doing it because we allowed it to happen, right? And but they also allowed it to happen.
Right.
So anyway, yeah, that was one of the harder things that I had to deal with.
There's one hard conversation we haven't talked about. We're not going to have time to talk about it, but we actually did a whole episode on it before, and that is around parting ways with a business partner. And that's probably something we want to talk about. Like I said, we did another episode where we touched on it, but it might be another conversation we have for a whole episode is around partnership, because I think that that's one of the other hardest conversations I've seen that can actually result in the
destruction of the company.
Business.
Yeah.
100%.
Founder issues, partner issues are the number one cause of startups not making it.
Yep. 100%. Yep. Okay. Okay, I just lost my window. I got too excited there. Speed round. Okay, you are answering the speed round questions today because I'm the host. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Your longest employee is now your weakest. Same rules or different?
Same rules.
Okay. Raise prices 20% and lose loyal customers, or stay flat and resent them?
Prices. Raise prices.
You've got a B player you love. Promote or exit?
Leave them where they are.
You need B players.
Yeah, exactly right.
And how do you, and I think the question there is, why do you love them? Right?
Yeah, exactly right.
Firing someone who cried, guilty first or relieved first?
So I think that's asking, they cried during the firing.
This is your question. I don't know. You.
Yeah. That's always hard. Like, I'm never relieved. Let me put it this way. I'm never relieved when I fire somebody.
Right. But I remember firing somebody because our business was running out of money. It wasn't my business, but I had to do the firing. And he sent me flowers the next day saying, thanks for being the best boss I ever had. So like, it sucked, but also, yeah. Customers since day one, now unprofitable. Fire them or subsidize?
Raise your prices.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like we just had.
Just raise your prices. Set terms that are acceptable to you.
Yeah, you know what? Like most clients I've dealt with, like if you've been serving them for a couple of years and you're like, hey, our prices are going up, they're like, great. I get it. Yeah.
A lot of I found that as well. A lot of founders are hesitant to raise prices on their customers. But if you need to, it's fine if you don't want to pro rata raise your prices on your current customers as the ones that are coming in new. But you do need to look at what their alternatives are and make sure you're in the range, maybe a little bit more cost effective than your competitors are for your loyal customers because they're loyal, and you don't have customer acquisition costs. But you still should be perfectly fine raising your prices as the market demands.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Okay, deep dive resources: Necessary Endings by Henry Cloud, Good Authority by Jonathan Raymond, both good. Good discussion today. I hope this gave you, as our listener, the push that you need to make the call that you've been avoiding, or the perspective to be constantly looking at your people and your customers in the vein of what's good for the business. So why don't you close us out and take us home?
Hey, thanks everybody so much for listening. Please be sure to visit us at howtofounder.com, where you can connect with us on LinkedIn and subscribe to our YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify channels. Please give us that thumbs up and subscribe, and leave us a review if you enjoyed Stephanie. If you don't like me, don't punish Stephanie for that.
You're not alone.
You're not alone. You're not alone. You guys are the pioneers of economic prosperity, and we're just truly grateful to be there along the way with you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Steph. Bye.